Welcome to another edition of the Spyder's Web, live from the Bucks room. I'm Spyder, along with one of my fan analysts. I told you we're going to do an NFC preview, NFC East preview program. John Martin, welcome to the Bucks room. Welcome to the Spyder's Web. How you doing tonight,
Thank you
sir?
for having me. I'm glad to be here, and I'm doing fantastic. Still alive, can't complain.
What do you think about the Bucks room, huh?
Think it's nice. It could use some more color, maybe some blue, some silver, maybe a hole in the roof like old Texas Stadium.
At least you're honest. Well, there you go. We're going to break down the NFC East, talk about the strengths and weaknesses of his favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. And then I'm going to put him on the spot. We're going to do a new segment called the Spyder's Fire, where I ask him 5 questions about his team, and he has to answer it to the best of his ability and give me the reasons why he thinks that. Again, welcome to another edition of the Spyder's Web, a special edition live from the Bucks room. And let's get to it, John. You're a big-time Cowboy fan. How long have you been a Cowboy fan for? You told me that you actually grew up in Tampa. How did you become a Cowboy fan? And who did you like growing up? Who did you like watching growing up as a Cowboy fan?
I've been a Cowboy fan ever since I can remember. I know that basically ever since I was a kid. My dad, his favorite teams were the Dolphins and 49ers, but he also he loved Tom Landry. Tom Landry was a coach that he liked because he was under the Lombardi mold, and not too many people didn't like Lombardi. But I started growing up liking them because they had that America attitude, like the whole, they had the class, they were a class act, they were a classy team. Tom Landry led them, they had a good aura about them, whereas when you saw the Raiders or Pittsburgh, you thought of rough, tough. But when you saw the Dallas, they were more like the classy type, like people respected them. They actually respected them because they were a good team. They were a team that you were proud of. And I just grew up liking them. My favorite player growing up was Emmitt Smith, and the reason why is because
Good player.
It's hard to say coming from a Seminole fan. Yeah, he was a Gator.
Even though he was a Gator.
But
yeah.
he was a great player, but on top of that, his work ethic and his off-the-field work is what made him great. Sort of like Walter Payton. He was durable. He would go through injuries. He played through injuries, like most memorable the game that he played against the Giants where he had a dislocated shoulder. He just would he embodied what the old Cowboys, the Cowboys of old, what you would have thought of when they would get out there and keep going, and that's what he embodied. And he was my favorite player, and I've always loved the Cowboys. They just I don't know, they have that thing about them, like that presence about them. When they come onto the field, people know it, and they're just really respected. I think a lot of it's been tarnished since Jerry Jones took over, but I think they're a great team, and I think they have a lot of respect around them. Not so much in the recent years because
not so much, right?
But I mean, they still.
At least you're honest.
But they're still one of the most popular teams in the world, and I'm proud to be a Cowboy.
And you know how you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, that he's a hardcore Cowboy fan? Because he has a faded Emmitt Smith jersey. So I know this guy is a hardcore football fan. He's about to teach you about the Cowboys. Let's talk about their season last year. They go 8-8. They're 7-4 in the NFC East. It looks like they're in the driver's seat. All of a sudden, everything falls apart. And I think the lightning bolt of the controversy with the Cowboys always comes back to Tony Romo. Tell me about your strength on this team, about your strengths, and about your weaknesses.
The strength on this team is the defense. Our defense this year
really
went from being one of our worst attributes to being one of the best. We have a tremendous backfield now. We've probably got one of the deepest cornerback rotations in the league. We've got Brandon Carr, Maurice Claiborne. We've also got Mike Jenkins still. We've got Orlando Scandrick. He's not great, but he gets the job done. And he's a $25 million man, so he better get the job done, or he's going to be wishing he had have got the job done.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's great. You've got DeMarcus Ware. You got an up-and-comer in Sean Lee, who is actually turning into one of the leaders on this team outside of Witten, Romo, and
You're high on this guy.
And this guy has a high motor, and he has one of those things that Jason Garrett's been trying to preach. High motor, high character, great player, a person that shows it on the field and shows it off the field. And he's the kind of person that maybe Des Bryant should maybe be hanging around a little more. Also on defense, their defensive tackles, they've got some young players there as well, and I think the steal of the draft on that defensive line is going to be Tyrone Crawford that came out of Boise State.
Mm-hmm.
He was not expected to do much, but he's added some weight. He's gotten a little bit better at pass rushing. He's done more than they really expected in preseason. And if he adds some moves, maybe a little more weight, I expect him to do a lot more. Maybe by the end of the year, he might be pushing Marcus Spears or Kenyon Coleman out of their starting position or out of their positions, and they might be looking for a new job with another team.
Now, I always say one of the weaknesses on this team, and even though he is a winner, and it's been proven with his record, he has a pretty good record, Romo does. I think he's one of the weaknesses on this team. 1-3 in the playoffs. It seems like in the fourth quarter, he tries to do too much. Tell me what you think the weakness on the Dallas Cowboys is this year.
The reason why I disagree with Romo being the weakness is because, first of all, when those losses happened, there were plays after those plays. Mm-hmm. So, like when the snap happened against Seattle, there was another minute and a half that happened after that there was still time to play. The defense didn't hold up, do what they needed to. They didn't stop them. There was also a couple other games in the playoffs where the defense didn't hold up like they should have, like that New York Giants game when the Giants won their first Super Bowl. There was a time when he threw the interception, defense didn't hold up. So, yeah.
Do you think he tries to do too much as a Cowboy fan? I mean, honestly, if you had another quarterback that you could have in this league, would you stick with Tony Romo or would you take that other quarterback?
I would stick with Tony Romo for the fact of one reason, and that is because his fourth quarter rating is actually pretty high. Mm-hmm. It's actually up there above 100. His fourth quarter, or his player rating, is one of the highest. He's second all time to only one person, and that's Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. Ever heard of Brady, Manning? He's better than them.
Okay.
Rating wise. And
but they have Super Bowl rings.
And you do say he does do a lot, and the reason why he does that is to make up for their true weakness, and that's the offensive line. Minus Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith is a stud, a future Hall of Famer, and I think a future...
Really?
That's my honest opinion.
It's a lot, John Martin. That's a lot to put on him.
I think within about 3 years, he's going to be one of the top tackles, if not the top tackle in the league. The only one that might be ahead of him is Jake Long, but that's because he's been playing longer.
Even if he's switching positions?
Yes.
Because he started off at right side, which was his natural position at USC, is now he's going to the left side. Now that's a transition, and you're moving free to the other side. I wonder if the offensive line is not one of your weaknesses, because I watch a lot of preseason football, and I watched this offensive line in action, and they didn't look very good.
Well, the reason why I say I'm not too worried about Tyron Smith is because with him moving to the left side, you got to think in practice and in preseason, who's the main person he's going to be stopping on that left side, especially in practices? DeMarcus Ware, one of the premier pass rushers in the league, who's going to be coming at that blind side. And if he can stop him, he'll stop anybody on the field. He'll stop your best players on the field.
And he's going to have to, because he's going to face, as a left tackle, you're always going to face the premier pass rusher on that team.
And that's one thing DeMarcus Ware has said he's noticed, is that he's got good footwork, he's got power. That's one thing that cannot be taught. He has a strength about him, and he has an athleticism about him. And DeMarcus Ware said that actually he had some hard times trying to get past him in practice. Mm-hmm. And so if he's having a hard time, I'm waiting to see Jason Pierre-Paul try to get past him. I want to see Tuck say, come on, let's see what you got. Send Babin after him. But you know what? Free going to the other side. He's got no piece of cake neither, because you got all the other guys that are on the other side that are coming, because actually he didn't play that easy of a side last year, because he still had people coming after him, because you got to think in the NFC East, it's a pass rush. It's a pass rush league.
It is.
And every team has at least 4 or 5 pass rushers.
And always subscribe to this theory. You have to have 2 things in the NFL to win. First, you have to be able to rush the passer, okay? And you have to have a good quarterback. And I think the Dallas Cowboys have that potential. Now, with Tony Romo saying that, with their skill positions and Dez Bryant, is this guy ever going to step up and be the potential Michael Irving on the field besides off the field, which the last couple of years it seems like he's been more about being off the field, getting into trouble. I mean, this guy could get into a car and get into trouble, and he's off the team just like that. I mean, he's already had curfew rules put into effect, all these restrictions. Is it going to help this team out?
I think his attitude's a lot different than Michael Irvin's, because first of all, I think that he is showing the willingness to want to get better. He came to the Dallas front office and said, "Hey, I want some rules because I've never had a structure in my life. My family is I've never had a family around me. I've never had that authority figure. I want something that's structured." So they set those rules up because he asked for it, not because they were forced on him. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think that in the long run, I think he's going to be worthy of wearing that 88 because, first of all, there's a couple players that came before him that wore that 88. You got Michael Irvin, you also got Bob Hayes. And, I mean, for them to both be wearing that number.
Drew Pearson, too?
Or Drew Pearson,
Drew Pearson, yeah. See, I'm not even a Cowboy fan.
That's right, Drew
Pearson.
How about that? But not Bob Hayes, it was Drew Pearson. But
right.
Drew Pearson was the right one, yeah.
It's all right.
But anyways, yeah, Drew Pearson, and they're two people that were great. But I think in the long run, I honestly think I see a good future ahead of Bryant, and I think it's for the fact that, one, he's got a good head on his shoulders because, yeah, he has made some bad mistakes, but that's because of his upbringing. I think he's been taught wrong, but I think the fact that he came in there and asked for help, that's the first step, and I think he's going to have a great future. I think he's going to step up this year, and I think he's going to have a huge year. I think he's going to actually end up being one of Tony Romo's favorite targets.
Speaking of a favorite target, and I'm glad you alluded to this, Jason Witten, spleen injury, could be very serious. He may not play tomorrow night. I know you're looking forward to this game against the Giants. What do you think the impact of that injury is going to be on this offense? Because if Witten is missing any time out of this offense, you got to think it's going to hurt it, right?
I think it hurts a little bit because of the fact that, yeah, that is one of Romo's favorite targets. But at the same time, too, he always finds somebody to throw the ball to. He will get somebody the ball to. And I actually think this might be a good thing because it'll give some of the other players a chance to show that, yeah, they can do something. Give Romo someone he can rely on. And one player that I would keep an eye on is James Hanna. He's their rookie that came out of Oklahoma, 5th rounder. And he's got the potential to be sort of like Aaron Hernandez from New England. Mm-hmm. He's got great athleticism. He's got the speed of a receiver, and he can outrun just about any cornerback. So he is a good player, and he's one to watch. And I think by the end of the year, he's going to be a big name for this Dallas team. And I think I'm actually excited to see what he can do. They've also got some young receivers too that I think can take up the slack, and I think they've got the main thing I think they would miss the most with Witten is the leadership is his biggest thing because he is the leader of that team, bar none. Defense, offense, he is the leader. He's been there the longest. He's been through it all, and he's the only one still left from all the stuff we were going through when we were battling with all the different quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. But he's still there. He's the leader, but we've got a lot of young players that are stepping in that I think can actually, I think his blocking, though, is another thing that we're going to miss a lot of. But there's some players. We've got Vickers that can step in block. We've got a few others. John Phillips also, he's not as, it seems like maybe his injury might have slowed him down a little bit, but actually he's starting to look like he's going back to form. He's going to be the number 1 tight end while Witten is out, and then Hanna will be number 2 while he's out. But they got some young guys that I think can step in and I think they can take off the slack, and I don't think they'll miss a beat.
Speaking of another weapon that's from Oklahoma, how about DeMarco Murray? His emergence last year kind of surprised some people. Do you think he's the real deal, or do you think he's a flash in the pan?
I think he's the real deal. Yeah, he might have a little bit of a rocky road at first because it's a sophomore year, and so people are going to key in on him. But I think the biggest impact to him this year that he got was actually, I think it's 2 things that are going to help him. One, I think Lawrence Vickers, that's going to be a key addition that they got in this offseason that's going to really help them. And the reason why I say that is because he's been a great blocker for 2 great running backs at Houston, a great running back in Cleveland, and he helped all 3 of them run for over 1,000 yards. But I also think the biggest key to DeMarco Murray's success is going to be the addition of Bill Callahan to the offense. Mm-hmm. Because, one, he is very good at making an offensive line great. He did it with the Jets. He made the offense out in Oakland great. But also, he's good at knowing how to spread the ball around the field, getting those short out passes, and that's what DeMarco Murray, one of his strengths is and that we didn't see much of last year. I think we'll see more of that this year. I think we'll see more of the out passes, him doing some more like what I used to like to see, some of the old school scat back type, where he'll get out there and just let his work show what he can do.
All right, my favorite segment right here, the Spyder's Fire. And I usually go on my little rant, but this time I'm going to ask you 5 questions about your Cowboys, and you're going to give me a couple of reasons why you think this is going to happen or why it's not going to happen. First question, do you think Tony Romo duplicates the success of last year, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions?
I think he does better.
Why?
The reason why is I think, one, he's got a better defense around him. I think the defense, first of all, he's got a couple of ball hawkers on that defense that are going to bring him some turnovers. I think he's going to get more turnovers. I think he's going to get more opportunities with the ball. Also, I think DeMarco Murray is going to open up the passing game because of the fact that not only can he be used in the running, but he can be also used in quick screens. He can be used out in over passes, blocking. He can be used so many different ways. And also, he's got a plethora of different options he can throw to. He's got 6 different receivers, a lot of young receivers, and I mean they're good at discovering players. They've got 3 good tight ends, and when Witten does come back, they might just have one of the best offensive cores minus the offensive line. They might have one of the best offensive cores in the league. So I think I'd say he's probably going to do a lot better. I'd say maybe 5 or 6 more touchdowns, and the interceptions might stay right around the same, but I think he'll probably have a couple more touchdowns.
Interesting.
Because I think Des Bryant's going to improve too. I think it's going to be a takeoff year.
Now, Tony Romo has been a proven winner with his record, but he's only 1-3 in the playoffs. If he cannot get you past the first round this year, do you consider going in another direction and getting rid of Tony Romo, or do you stay the course?
I think we stay the course because they've got a lot of things going on. There's a new attitude about this team that, first of all, it starts with Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's bringing in a new attitude that a lot of the players are liking. They're actually adapting to it. They're taking on this identity, and they're not as showboating as they have been in the past. I think they're taking more on the identity of Jason Garrett and Tony Romo than they are of Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones, yeah, he's still going to talk. But I think with Jason Garrett, with Tony Romo, I think Tony Romo is going to stay. I think Tony Romo, he is their best chance to win. If he is on the field healthy, and if the offensive line can keep him upright, they win as he wins, they lose as he loses, because he is their captain. He's going to take them to wins. And a lot of the wins they had last year, they wouldn't have had if it wouldn't have been for him. And a lot of the losses they had, they wouldn't have been in position to lose those games if it wouldn't have been for him.
Yeah, to give him credit, he played through a fractured rib, some various injuries last year. It was pretty impressive. Now, if you're not going to get rid of Tony Romo, let's say you're Jerry Jones and you don't make it past the first round of the playoffs, do you consider getting rid of Jason Garrett?
No, I don't. And the reason why I say that is because I think Jason Garrett, Tony Romo, and Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones' son, like I said, or what I've mentioned in the past to a couple of friends and stuff, is that I think Stephen Jones is starting to take on more of the, being more in charge, even though Jerry Jones is still the person out front, sort of like, I guess you would say the president or like the Queen of England. He's sort of like that person that's still out there, the person that you consider, oh yeah, he's the head of the Cowboys. But the people that actually run the show, I think Stephen Jones is taking more of that authority, sort of like with the Steinbrenners in New York, where the Suns finally started taking over slowly at a time, and they were doing more of the work. But I think Jason Garrett is doing something good. Yeah, he had a rough season last year. He took some bumps and bruises, and he got a lot more criticism than I think he deserved.
Yeah, they collapsed at the end of the year. That didn't help it. Yeah. So I don't know. If I'm in the Jerry Jones mindset and I'm Jerry Jones, I think about winning a Super Bowl because I built this stadium. I spent so much money on it. If I don't at least make it past the first round, the playoffs or more, I think about it going another direction.
But you also got to think, too, though. He wants to be right. He wants to say, yeah, I'm right. I know what I'm talking about. And he has said on several occasions that his worst decision he ever made was when Chan Gailey was a winning coach after he got rid of Barry Switzer. That Chan Gailey won 2 seasons. He never had a losing season, and he got rid of him after the 3rd season. Never gave him no more chances. And he said that was the worst decision he ever made. He wished he would have let him try, keep going, and see what would have happened. Well, with Jason Garrett, he hired him on because, first of all, he's in the mold. He's been around that family a long time. He's been on the team a long time. And I think that's the kind of person Jerry Jones wants on the team. And like I said, I think Jerry Jones wants to be right. And so he's going to try and stick with him as long as he did. And not only that, he stuck with Wade Phillips for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
He stuck with Dave Campo through 3, 5,
Way
and
too
11
long.
seasons.
Way too long.
And if he's
Way
willing to
too
give
long.
them enough chance,
Right.
he should at least give Garrett, because Garrett's got the right idea, and I think he's building something for not just 1 year. I think he's building something for multiple years to possibly build something to compete with this Giants dynasty, or maybe even New England's dynasty or Pittsburgh, so he can be up there and not let them get so far ahead of him in Super Bowl wins. So I think they got a good thing going, and I don't think he's worried about his spot.
Does the defense step up this year, in your opinion? Are they a top 15 defense, a top 10, a top 5? What's your opinion on them?
I think to start, they are a top 10, maybe 12 team, and that's because they've still got to gel. They've got a lot of young players that have got to get out there and prove themselves. But by the end of the year, I think they're going to be a top 5, possibly top 3 defense.
Wow.
And the reason why I say that is because, like I said a little bit ago, they've got one of the deepest cornerback rotations. They got
very
4.
talented.
They've also, and that was their biggest weakness last year that they turned into a strength. Also, they've got one of the deepest linebacking cores in the league as well. They've got some unbelievable young talent. They've got one of the most dominant pass rushers in the league, and if not history, and that's arguably history. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of great ones, but he's slowly but surely sneaking up there, and we might be looking at him as possibly saying one of the all-time
Speaking of
greats.
DeMarcus Ware, I assume, yeah.
And then
Anthony Spencer's got to do something eventually.
And Spencer actually, he gets not as much credit as he deserves because he does put a lot of pressure, but because he don't put up DeMarcus Ware-esque numbers, he gets criticized more. But he is a good run stopper, and he actually does get a lot of pressure. I was actually seeing where last year he pressured the quarterback 36 times, or was it like 30 times, and he had only 6 sacks. But you also got to think, though, it's because he's doing so much more. He's also helping with the run. But you're right, he does need to step up. He does need to do more. And I think the fact that he's looking for a long-term contract either with the Cowboys or another team is going to be that. And I think he's going to come out this year, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see him maybe reach double digits.
Final question. Convince me that the Dallas Cowboys are the number 1 team in the NFC East.
The reason why I believe the Cowboys are the number 1 team in the NFC East is because, first of all, I think the New York Giants are going to go into what you call the Super Bowl hangover.
Okay.
I think they're going to repeat history. History repeats itself. And I think they're going to do what they did a few years ago. They're going to come in there thinking they can just steamroll over everybody. And I think they're going to get upset on the first game of the season. Also, another reason why I think they're the best in the division is because Washington's still up and coming. They're not a great team. They still got a lot of pieces to work on. You got a lot of questions on Philadelphia as far as injuries go, and I know Dallas has a lot of questions too. But as far as like players on the team that are physically gifted and stuff, I think they may have one of the best rosters as a Cowboy fan that I have seen since their Super Bowl teams. And that is even including Terrell Owens, that is including any of them. This is the most complete team that I've seen. And if they can, in this offseason, shore up their offensive line, next year, they may be one of the best teams in the league. And that's because that's their only weakness I see on this team. And that's it. Outside of that, I think they are the best team in this division. And I think at the end of the year, they're going to be up there for fighting for the first place. And I think they're going to be making it in the playoffs, and I think they're going to be making some noise when it comes playoff time too.
You make a good argument, my friend. You really do. But you're gonna take more than that to convince the Spyder that the Dallas Cowboys are gonna be the number one team in the NFC East. This is what I have.
That's because I'm not going to convince you. They're going to convince you when they end up making it in the playoffs. And
very
shock
true.
A lot of people.
Very true. Very good point. But here's my thing. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are the number one team in the NFC East, simply because I think they've shored up some of their weaknesses on that defense last year. They missed more tackles in the NFL. They get DeMeco Ryans, Michael Kendricks out of the draft. Defensively, 50 sacks last year, which is very impressive considering that the defense was so bad at tackling. And then on the flip side of it, can they keep Michael Vick healthy? I think they can. LaShawn McCoy is an upcoming player. And remember this, Deshaun Jackson is a guy that didn't have a contract extension last year. He was very distracted. I expect him to come back this year and have a great year.
But can I say one thing about that, though?
Go ahead.
You also got to think, keeping Michael Vick healthy, you got that offensive line player, I forgot his name, but he got injured.
Yeah.
And Vic relies a lot on being able to run.
Left tackle.
And
yes.
If he got injured, that
But they got Demetrius Bell from Buffalo, so I think he'll fill that spot. It's a great point. The offensive line has kind of the same problems as Dallas does. The second team in this division, I think, is the New York Giants. They lost Manningham, they lost Jacobs. I still think they have enough. The problem for me is, what is Victor Cruz going to be like without Mario Manningham on that other side? I think they still have that defense, but again, the question for me is, David Wilson, he's going to be your backup. Is he going to come in and fill that spot that Jacobs had? Jacobs was an okay running back, but is he going to fill that spot? So to me, and also I put this in consideration, I think the Giants have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL. This is a brutal division. You could probably say one of the best divisions in football, so I think they finished second. I think the Dallas Cowboys are a third-place team, and this is why. The Tony Romo argument won't go away until this guy really does win more than one playoff game for me. The offensive line, to me, is a big-time question mark. I'm not sure about DeMarco Murray, but I will tell you this. I think they are in playoff consideration. I think this could be 3 teams from this division that will make the playoffs. And I think that defense will step up this year. And I think the Washington Redskins really kind of are the wild card. I think they're going to improve throughout the year. And I think it's going to be an exciting year for Washington Redskin fans because you have a guy like RG3 that's going to make some of these games that last year weren't very competitive with the Skins, with Rex Grossman at the helm, a former Florida Gator. Now it's going to be competitive. So overall, I like the Philadelphia Eagles to win this division. But I think the Dallas Cowboys aren't that far away from doing something in this division.
Well, like I said earlier, I think looking at a fan standpoint, yeah, I want them to win this year.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I think they're a few pieces away, and I think maybe not this year, but I would say and I think they're going to make a push this year. I think they're going to get in there, and I think they're going to make a push, and I think they're going to make a lot of noise. But I think if they can, like I said in the offseason, if they can shore up that offensive line, I think next year they're going to be one team to be, and I think they're going to be saying all roads are going to lead through Dallas. And as far as the Redskins, one of the things that I'm hoping they're not going to regret is letting go of Cooley, because he was consistent. He could play. He was able to get the catches when needed. He was sort of like a. Well,
they got Fred Davis, remember.
Well,
he stepped up last year.
But what if he does get an injury?
That's true.
And they need somebody. And Cooley, I mean, and not only
a little bit up there though, 32 years old.
But why not do like some of the other teans and go with 2 tight ends?
Yeah, I think that's the Washington Redskins for you.
Then again, whoever said I agreed with them. So.
Well, you've been watching the Spyder's Web NFL preview show for the NFC East. My friend John Martin, big-time Dallas Cowboy fan. Be sure to watch through the week. We'll be having more fans on here talk about their favorite teams and their divisions. Definitely stay tuned. Thank you very much, John, for coming on the Spyder's Web. We'll definitely have to have you back. Again, this is the Spyder's Web. I'm Spyder, voice of the fan. Same Spyder time, same Spyder channel.